All right, Sage is about to hit the 100-mile mark somewhere around here.
Hey, Sage.
Yeah, Sage! Woo!
Ooh, yeah, a little sore. So today is May 15th, 2025. It's been several days since my second attempt at a 24-hour, this is a fixed time, 24-hour event ultra. How far can you run in 24 hours? And of course, this one, the Dawn to Dusk to Dawn Ultras in Sharon Hills, PA, Pennsylvania, was on a 400-meter outdoor track. It was just this high school track. Decent weather, and of course this is coming from this is my second attempt at the 24-hour event. I tried last fall in November of 2024 at the Fat Ox Ultra, which was on a paved 1 mile, 1,600 meter loop. This was also hard, and I ended up not being able to run the full 24 hours, which was one of my main goals. My also main goal and real reason why I'm doing these events, besides embracing any service, any distance, was of course to try to make the World Championship team. If you make Team USA, the deadline's at the end of the month here in May. I probably needed about 152, 154 miles, which I thought was reasonable, but I couldn't do it. I failed epically. I feel like hopefully I've learned some more lessons, but I was able to go a longer distance, actually set a distance PR. I've never run much over the distance of UTMB 100, 106 miles, 107 miles. I went 116 miles in a little over 17 hours before I dropped out. And I'll get into those details in a second here, but I also came through the 100-mile mark, 100-mile split in 15 hours and 1 minute, which was also a personal best off of my one Western States 100 finish, which I did in like 17 hours. That was also a meltdown disaster, but I was not feeling great, and I'll get into the details here. I'd like to think I've learned a little and progressed since I did go farther than I did at Fat Ox. I only made it 88 miles in about 12 or 13 hours at the Fat Ox attempt. So progress has been made, but progress has been slow, and the learning curve is tough in these ultras. And I'll break down some of the details here, but thanks, of course, to my partner, Sandy, for being out there crewing. My parents drove over here from Ohio. I'm actually there back in Ohio now. We drove back, but they were out there crewing at the track. It was kind of humid coming from Colorado. It was solid weather though. It was maybe getting close to 80, in the 70s during the day, and then it wasn't raining like it had been the day before. It was a little on the windy side too, but that kind of helped manage things. I wouldn't say heat was an issue. And then going into the night, which I didn't go all the way through the night, but going into the night, the wind died down, the temperature dropped. It was really ideal running conditions. And you know, I was up there going out with, behind my Hoka teammate, Pete Kosselnick. Congrats to Pete, who ended up winning the event, 154 miles. I think he's got a spot on Team USA for that. An experienced guy. He has the record of running across the US in 42 days. He's won Badwater 135 a couple times. He's gone over 160 miles in these events. He's been doing them for years. A real specialist in that. So watching him in action was eye-opening, and he got ahead of me. I had some unfortunate bathroom stops early on. My digestive system was not quite used to this East Coast time, earlier start. So that was unfortunate. It wasn't GI issues. It was just, I didn't go number 2 before the race like I usually like to do. So I was stopping at the porta pot. He got a bit ahead. I was stopping way more than he was. And I think in these fixed ultra time events, when you're trying to average actually, you know, under 9 minute per mile pace average, you can't afford to sit down and stop for very long. Unlike a trail ultra event where I would take a longer break at an aid station, maybe change shoes and sit down because you're going off into the mountains for hours and hours and you need to gear up and full on hydrate and stuff food in your mouth. These fixed ultra events, I've learned, and this is my biggest takeaway and lesson from this, is that it's really better to have a totally different mindset. You're running on a flat track or a flat surface, and there's no finish line. The finish line feels like it's moving away from you because the faster you run, the more distance you have to cover. And the work output is tremendous when you're mentally trying to break that apart. I wasn't listening to music. I didn't want to risk it with the USATF rules. So no music, 400-meter track. You're lapping a lot of people. We're all out in lane 2 actually quite a bit, lapping people. That's kind of par for the course in these events. So Pete's dealing with that. There were some other great guys that finished ahead of me. I was getting past, but I was behind Pete for the first 100 miles or so, and yeah, trying to learn a lot. Just grabbing a handheld, carrying it around the track, and sipping it. I think I was trying to still do what I did at Fat Ox or doing a trail ultra, and I'm trying to chug fluid too fast, and I think that caught up to me a bit. So first 7-8 hours were pretty good. It was getting a little warm. We had ice bandanas going on. I was taking gels. I decided that the gels did not sit well with me, but it was mainly the fluid. I think I need to sip slower in these types of events, and I was trying to chug a half liter pretty fast. I think I overdid it a little. Started getting that stomach sloshing, and I tried to figure out my sweat rate, the fluid concentration. I think the salt was good. I had enough carbs. I wasn't running low on glycogen. I didn't feel bonky or anything like that, but I noticed I was peeing pretty frequently early on, and then I kind of just stopped peeing. And then when you did pee, the pee starts turning a darker yellow. That's usually a bad sign because dehydration also tends to shut your muscles down. And I was starting to feel a little stiffness in the legs. I was telling my friend Steven, the joke is like 9 minute per mile pace feels really slow and easy for me for about 70 miles. And then all of a sudden at 70 miles, however many hours in that was, it starts feeling a little bit more like 7 minute per mile pace, which is quite alarming because that's, the significant effort increase goes there, but that's also kind of par for the course in these events, I think. So, I had alluded in my pre-race video that I'd been sick with COVID. I had tested positive for COVID the week before the race. I almost didn't do this trip because I didn't want to expose my parents or any people traveling, but I can't say I was feeling 100%. I'd had a really rough night of sleep, only an hour or two of sleep the night before, because I was coughing mainly, but I'm not going to use that. That's planting my excuse. I don't think the COVID or being sick was an issue. I think what happened with the dehydration and muscle shutdown was going to happen anyway. And the other eye-opening experience was talking to a lot of these legends. Shout out to Ray, shout out to race director Bill, shout out to Pete for picking their brain, is that I need to get back into super high mileage training. Some of these guys run 150, 200 miles a week. I'll put that in kilometers there in training. And it dawned on me that, the 50 miles a week I've been doing since Boston, or before Boston, the 12 weeks before Boston, low mileage for me, is not nearly enough for these long distance events. I mean, who would have thought? Like, you're trying to run 150 miles in one day. You should probably do that over the course of 7 days in training, right? And not just that, but like the idea of big doubles, big back-to-back long runs, 50K, 60K types of efforts on the track. I just didn't have time for it after Boston because of my travel and recovering from Boston, which I also think was probably not ideal. But yeah, I'm a lot more comfortable with shorter distance events. I always have been. Maybe genetically, my sweet spot is 50K to 80 miles or 50 miles. Actually, I think my sweet spot used to be shorter distance mountain races. I used to come from the sub-ultra, Golden Trail series, been top 10 at that a couple of times. Pike Peak Marathon, Speedgoat 50K Mount Washington. The 12K mountain running has always treated me well when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I have a pulmonary embolism. I want to explore the whole realm of any service, any distance. And even though I struggle and epically fail in these events, I still like to think that I like the challenge. I like the problem solving. I like embracing, different experiences in distance running. And I will say this is a very different subset niche of ultra running. But like we say, mountain ultra trail running, not just doing ultras on trails. I'm doing ultras on roads and flat surfaces now. I'm experimenting with going over 100 miles, which is a new experience. But yeah, final takeaways. I got to get that mileage up. I got to dial in. The nutrition and hydration, I think, is real fickle in these events. But I think going back to more liquid calories would probably be in my best interest. So I started puking around mile 115 was when I started puking, but I had been dealing with some stomach sloshiness, not absorbing fluid, getting dehydrated. That makes your nausea worse. And then trying to force a gel is what really did me in, forcing a caffeine gel. I don't think I needed that much caffeine because I wasn't really that sleepy, but of course caffeine could be a good stimulant effect, but I digress here. I had some Taco Bell. I started running low 8-minute miles after mile 90 after eating part of a Crunchwrap Supreme, which was encouraging, and sipping on Sprite also. I made my parents get Sprite and non-alcoholic beer, but having that mix and that experience comes with the territory, and moving to a new type of event, I think it's a lot of problem solving, and I'll admit I've failed. I haven't gotten it right. Hopefully you could learn something from my mistakes. I know people have mentioned the walk breaks. It's hard to take a lot of walk breaks if you want to average sub 9-minute per mile pace. I think if you were going for a slower average mile pace or a slower total, walk breaks could be hugely beneficial, but I need to minimize my stoppage time. I was trying to change between my two shoes. I had the Hoka Road Cielo Road Flat, which is a very thin minimal shoe that I felt very comfortable in. My toes had plenty of space. When I switched to the Rocket X, which I absolutely love the Rocket X, I wore it at Boston, I found that my toes start rubbing together a bit. It's a little bit of a tighter toe box. And after 40 miles, you start noticing that my mechanics are quite different at 9-minute per mile pace versus the 5:30 per mile pace I was running at Boston. So I think just figuring out that difference is actually really huge, where you don't think about it when you're trail running. If you're doing a UTMB or a mountain ultra trail race, you're power hiking anyway. You're taking those walk breaks, you're loading up at aid stations. It's a totally different dynamic, and that's what I love about it. I love working on my technical downhill running mountain chops. I love working on my power hiking technique with a pack on, and I love doing flat, fast road marathons. So I don't always do them well, but any service, any distance, we're along for the journey. I think now I'm going to take a step back, recover. I do want to keep trying at some of these events. Maybe I'll try 100 miles on the track, a little more manageable or something like that, or probably do a fast 50 mile, more of a flat 50. Haven't really done a fast 50 miler since Comrades, so it'd be great to experience that. But I think I need to get back to high mileage training, putting in the work, doing that extra endurance, getting those legs totally calloused with super high mileage numbers and manageable efforts, but getting healthy first, recovering from this illness, and trying to stay in the game, making content on here. So really appreciate all your support. Comment below with any challenges you face, lessons you've learned in these events. I know I got a lot of great feedback, some constructive criticism. I put myself out there to be vulnerable, and I get bashed online by people that are like, oh, Sage is washed up, or he sucks now, or he shouldn't try these events. But that's part of putting yourself out there on social media, and I realize that. And we're all going through life with different challenges and adversities, and trying to learn something. So I really do appreciate all the encouragement and people that have said, oh, keep trying, keep doing these things. You do have to be smart about it, and it is tricky because I want to do everything all at once all the time, and that's been a flaw of mine. It makes me vulnerable, and it distracts me sometimes, and I make mistakes, but we're all learning through life in this process. And, I still love road marathons too. So the shorter distances, still there, still got mountain season in the summer. It's going to be great. So looking forward to that, getting you guys some scenery. Always open to comments and suggestions on here with the media. So thanks for subscribing, liking these videos. Hope you're doing well. Thanks again to title sponsor, Hoka, keeping the dream alive. And shout out to Pete, former Hoka teammate, for making probably the world team and winning this event, Dawn to Dusk to Dawn Ultras. Thanks to all the volunteers out there and the race organizer. A lot of history in these events and stats and numbers to dig into, so it's fun for me. So thanks again for all your support. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more VO2 Max Productions. Go Pete, you got it.
Sage.
You got it.
Thanks man, thanks for coming back.
Way to go. 154.